Welcome to the WWE Podcast, your place for the most passionate wrestling analysis on the web.
Just turn Roman heel. What is WWE waiting for?
When other wrestling podcasts put you to sleep, you can count on the WWE Podcast to keep you engaged and asking for more.
I've been watching wrestling for over 20 years, and that was one of the best matches I've ever seen.
This is unlike any other wrestling analysis. So without any further delay, let's get the show started right now.
And this is the WWE Podcast on this Monday, September 16th, 2019, talking about Clash of Champions that wrapped up last night, and Raw just went on the air a few minutes ago as I start this show. So tomorrow you'll get your Raw review, and then of course Wednesday will be your SmackDown Live review, and then Thursday we'll be bringing on my co-host Ashley to discuss the entire week of WWE, which there will be a plentiful amount of topics to discuss, especially after last night. And overall, a show that I enjoyed. Didn't blow me out of the water, but I think a couple of reveals saved the show and put it in the thumbs up category for me. So I'm going to break down the matches and my thoughts in just a minute, but just a few updates on things, guys. The NXT podcast is going to be paused for the moment. I'm working out some things with my co-host there, and so it is being worked on, so stay patient and stay with us. We will bring you the NXT podcast, especially as we roll into the Wednesday Night Wars with AEW that will be starting very, very soon. So really excited to be bringing that to you, as well as the AEW weekly podcast. They'll be coming your way once AEW starts his weekly show in just a few weeks. It's crazy. It's just crazy. So we got a lot to cover, but stay right here for all of your analysis and takes and honest opinions, which is what this show is all about. It's not about, this is not state-run radio, right? So we give you guys straightforward analysis for what we think about the product. And, sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad, but it's honest. It's honest. We have no agenda whatsoever, and that's what I think our listeners appreciate. So, and by the way, thank you for being a listener. Again, this is the WWE Podcast. You can follow us on Twitter at the WWE Podcast, or go to WWEpodcast.com for all of our podcasts and articles. We've had a few great articles published over the last week or so, and I'd encourage you to check that out and support the show. Easy way to do that. Couple of ways. You just click on the Support the Show tab. Could it be any easier than that? And then click on the Amazon banner, and you can do any of your shopping you normally do. Just click on the banner and start there. That's it. You can also rate and review us anywhere that podcasts can be rated, which we are available absolutely everywhere, just in case you are wondering. And you can also head on over to patreon.com/WWE podcast. And before I go any further on Patreon, because I do have a little bit of news there, I would like to thank Dan Hauk Mariel DeSouza. Boy, I really hope I didn't butcher that. But Dan, I'll just leave it at your first name because I don't want to mispronounce your name. But Dan, thank you. You are appreciated and the latest patron of the show. Thank you for joining the WWE Podcast family. It's much appreciated, and I enjoy your ad-free experience, because that's what you're going to get when you join patreon.com/WWE podcast, is an ad-free experience to this show. Zero plugs, zero ads, zero fluff. It's all just straight content. It's the meat of what you want. And the other piece of news on Patreon is that I will be doing a video portion to this show starting this week. Now, what does that mean? Does it mean it starts tomorrow? Does it mean that it starts on Wednesday or maybe even Thursday? I don't know quite yet, but if you get yourself signed up this week, the video portion of this show will be available on patreon.com/WWE podcast. So if you're interested in video, check that out, and it would be much appreciated. So let's get right into the Clash. Let's get to the Clash. And I want to start with what was last seen by our eyes. And I don't like to go sometimes in chronological order, because that's not always the way that my mind works, and likely yours. Sometimes the most important things come up first. So what's the most important thing? Well, Bray Wyatt, I think. After Seth Rollins retained his Universal Championship against Braun Strowman, which I enjoyed the match, by the way. I thought that the Universal Championship match was better than it that I thought it would was going to be. And while I did anticipate some kind of interference so that neither man would get pinned clean, this match was, I think, it exceeded expectations from the standpoint of drama. Now, Braun Strowman having to kick out of 4 finishes and having 5 finishes applied in order to win or be defeated, is that lazy booking? You could argue yes. Or is it genius in that even in a loss, Braun looks like he's what exactly he says he is, and that's a monster. And it also cements Seth as the guy. It cements Seth as the true torch holder for the WWE flagship brand right now. They had him beat Brock clean. They had him beat Braun clean. And now he moves on to the Fiend.
He can now be called the Beast Slayer and the Monster Slayer. Seth Rollins retains the Universal Championship here tonight from Charlotte at Clash of... Oh my God, no. The Fiend is here! He's got Rollins. Sister Abigail on the stage!
So the Fiend appears and demolishes Seth Rollins, gives a Sister Abigail to him on the stage. What I like about this is a couple of things. Number one, it immediately establishes Seth Rollins' next opponent. Immediately. There's no time to breathe. So that's clearly where we're headed for Hell in a Cell. And if you read the tea leaves in Bray Wyatt's Firefly Funhouse last week, he said, "See you in hell," and Hell in a Cell. So I don't think that took a brain surgeon to understand what was happening there. Not everything Bray Wyatt is cryptid in layers and layers and layers of riddles upon riddles. Sometimes it is a little bit more straightforward than you may think, and clearly pointing to Hell in a Cell, their next pay-per-view event. So with that being said, number one, you have established Seth Rollins' next opponent. Good. That's what you need. Number two, did you hear the crowd reaction? I did. I really don't know. Is it possible to position Bray Wyatt with this character that is the hottest thing WWE's had in years as a heel? Is it possible? I don't think it is. It's just too cool. It's too unique. It's too genuinely scary and feels not like it's a kid's show. It feels very authentic. And the fact that it came from Bray Wyatt makes it that much better. It has so much going for it, and they don't overexpose the Fiend. I said this on a show last week with my co-host. Look, this does not need to be a character that WWE beats into the ground. And that is what WWE has been guilty of for as long as I can remember. When they find something that works, they go, "Oh my God, well, we got something that works. What if we do it every week? That'll make people love it because they're telling us that it's something they love. So let's give them what they love a lot." No. Let's not. So whoever is controlling the Fiend in terms of when he appears is doing a brilliant job. We all know ultimately it's Vince McMahon who controls the creative, but whoever is taking charge of this Fiend character in terms of the creative end of it, of how much it's exposed and when they appear, is doing a brilliant job. Maybe it's a team of people. It's brilliant. You don't do it every week. In fact, I don't care if it happens once every couple of months. Months. I said it. Now, of course, there comes a limit. But you could keep people intrigued. Maybe take just a week off of just nothing. No Firefly Funhouse. Nothing. Maybe a mention and that's it. And then come back with a Firefly Funhouse. Maybe another Firefly Funhouse. A week off of nothing. And then the Fiend, comes in and does whatever he does. So I hope that they are disciplined in not giving the fans too much of this. Just listen to that reaction. The Fiend got the biggest pop of the night. Attacking the Universal Champion, the WWE's perceived top babyface, and he gets that reaction. Because how good the Fiend is as a character overshadows any kind of positioning him as a heel to get boos. The Fiend is above the traditional role of a heel. And look, I'm all for traditional roles. They are not passé. They are not. You know how I know they're not? Because every TV show and movie ever created, ever, that continues to be created, always has a protagonist and an antagonist. Always. Always. So it's not out of style. That's how the human psyche works. You want to root for somebody and root against somebody. And right now, the Fiend is something that is above traditional heel characteristics and heel reactions and heel positioning. The Fiend is above that. There's just look no further than every example and every time that the Fiend has made an appearance and attacked WWE legends and gotten the reaction that he has. So if you think that the Fiend is going to be positioned as and get the reaction of a heel, you are sadly mistaken. And WWE is sadly mistaken if they believe that that's going to be the case. That's how powerful this character is right now. And a little goes a long ass way. And I love it. I know people are impatient and they're disappointed when they show up to Raw or SmackDown and they don't get the Fiend because they want to see him. And people feel that they might have been cheated. No. Just, again, that is a reaction that brings me back to the Attitude Era. That type of pop. And especially considering it's the end of the show. When the crowd is exhausted from the ups and downs of the show, the ebb and flow, it's late at night, people have to work the next day, there's school, you have to leave the building, and they still had the energy to do that and make that type of reaction. Furthermore, not just the crowd reaction, but also the unexpectedness of this. Because the little thing here, the little detail, is they did this when you thought everything was comfy cozy and that Seth Rollins retained. And they even, here's the key, they even did their traditional go home logo stamp at the bottom right of the pay-per-view. It's a Clash of Champions 2019. That always signifies they're going off the air. And Michael Cole was going into his go-home phrase and typical sentence of like, and Seth Rollins retains at Clash of, and the boom, lights go out. It was just perfect because when is the last time something happened at the very last second of the show when that logo stamp was there and oh, well, they've done everything they're going to do, show's over. Your mind is educated and is just told to believe that is always the end of the show. That I loved. That is something so small but so big and something I loved. And what I also loved about Clash of Champions, and as a whole, was every championship match was done in a very UFC type of way in terms of the introductions. You had the ring announcer stand there, and every time there was a match, the champion stood there, the challenger stood there, and they had the announcer announce the challenger and the champion as if this was like a UFC octagon fight. It felt that way with the lights completely turned off at the crowd and the lights completely focused on the ring. I love that. Small touch, but big effect. Big effect. Loved it. So just something there. One last little thing. Why do they have this called Clash of Champions, by the way? Champions aren't fighting each other. It should have just been Night of Champions. I don't know why they changed the name. Clash of Champions suggests that you have two champions facing each other. Night of Champions suggests that this is a night dedicated to the champions of WWE in whatever title they may hold. So I'm just, Clash of Champions is a little bit of a, it just doesn't make a whole lot of sense because it wasn't any champion versus champion matches. But I don't know, neither here nor there. So beyond the Seth Rollins and Braun Strowman match, which I enjoyed more than I thought I would, especially that late in the pay-per-view, I also enjoyed Bayley versus Charlotte. The reason I enjoyed it is because, number one, the outcome I agree with. Not because I like Bayley as a character. I despise Bayley as a babyface character, clearly moving towards a heel. And they made that clear last night, having her do anything she can to win. And I said, look, I got to take credit when I can. I noted on my prediction show that they need to do something with Bayley that gives them a clear direction for Bayley, not this kind of wishy-washy, delusional babyface that thinks they're a babyface and being a hero, but they don't. The crowd doesn't really like. But why don't we really like her? Well, here's a reason not to. Here's a mile marker for Bayley. Having her do anything she can to win, using the bottom rope, taking the pad off the buckle, and driving Charlotte's face into it without the referee seeing and getting the 3 count. That's called heel tactics. Thank you. WWE was 100%, 110% on the right track there with Bayley. If it's a slow descent into darkness, as I have phrased it over the last couple of weeks, I'm all for it. But if it continues to just be this wishy-washy, delusional babyface that's floating in the no man's land and has no real direction, and then WWE just expects the crowd to turn on her full-fledged for no particular reason, then that is the wrong approach. So a good sign here with Bayley getting that cheap victory, doing anything she can to win, which is, again, a very common heel practice. Correct in terms of how Bayley won, and having Bayley win outright. Right? You don't want to have Charlotte look super strong, Bayley look weak. You needed this to be about Bayley, and that's what this was about. And not transferring the belt to Charlotte. Charlotte doesn't need the belt. Bayley needs to have the belt right now because they're doing a character change. If they weren't doing this, I would say get the belt off Bayley immediately. But the match was good. The finish was good, and just I enjoyed this overall. I would give that match a thumbs up as well. Now, another match. Again, this is where my mind goes. There's no particular order, just the things that are coming to my head in order. Randy Orton versus Kofi Kingston. And, I posted this on Twitter earlier today, that I am so over Kofi Kingston as champion for the reasons that I have complained about, maybe might be the word, or elaborated on over the last few weeks with several co-hosts and by myself sitting here ranting about it. And many of you have gotten angry at me and wrote me nasty reviews on iTunes about it. But why don't you just sit down and think about this, guys? Kofi Kingston has the most prestigious belt in the history of WWE. The WWE Championship. Held by the likes of Hulk Hogan. Okay, I know that the championship has been renamed, but it's essentially the same belt. Okay, I know you're thinking, oh, he's not right. Yes, I am. Hulk Hogan. Ultimate Warrior. Bob Backlund. Bruno Sammartino. The Rock. Stone Cold Steve Austin. Triple H. Kane. Undertaker. Do you want me to keep going? John Cena. CM Punk. And now we have Kofi effing Kingston. Now, I'm not going to repeat myself about all the reasons I don't like Kofi Kingston as WWE champion. But when you have a guy that is positioned on a show that is not the main event, and not the main event of not just the pay-per-view being the WWE champion, but also not the main event of SmackDown Live for weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks, and it's all about the whodunit with Roman Reigns. Oh, and don't worry, we'll get to that match too. It not only is disrespectful to the belt, but it also is educating the fans to position Kofi as not really the main event in your brains. It's about the whodunit. We've got other top priorities that, in our minds, is a better creative direction than Kofi Kingston ending SmackDown Live as the main event. And you may say, well, he's main evented SmackDown, but what was the last 2 minutes? How many times did they have, maybe even Kofi Kingston in a match in the main event, although there were times that didn't happen either. But no matter what the main event is, match I'm talking about, it was always the last few minutes dedicated to Roman Reigns being a bully backstage and telling people to get out of the locker room, like some high school. I almost said a swear. A high school jock. I'll leave it at that. And having him backstage and interrogating people, and it just tells me that WWE doesn't even believe that he should be the main event of the show, because Roman Reigns is still the main event of the show even if he doesn't have the belt. You don't believe me? Go watch SmackDown the last month. So you have that, and on top of the fact that Kofi Kingston's run has been very subpar in terms of excitement, in terms of creativity, in terms of feeling relevant. The belt is getting lost in Kofi Kingston's power of positivity and crap. It's getting lost in pancakes and smiles and baby, which has never caught on ever, and it's awful. I'm sorry. No, I'm not sorry. It's awful. I love Kofi Kingston as an athlete. I think he is tremendous. I think he's a genuinely good guy. I think he's an absolute asset to WWE. I would put him on my roster if I could draft. I would make him tag team champion. I would occasionally bump him up to Intercontinental champion. I would put him in triple threats for the main event, or maybe fatal four ways from the main event, giving him an opportunity, but never quite having him achieve that top belt because some guys just don't belong. And it has nothing to do with the color of his skin. It has everything to do with of the sample size of Kofi Kingston's 11-year career. That's long enough to know and feel whether or not a guy is WWE Championship material. That's long enough. And for 11 years, I have never once said, man, Kofi Kingston should be WWE Champion. What are they doing? They are really missing the boat here. Never. And I believe that the majority of fans probably are in the same boat. And the bandwagon fans that jumped on it after the Elimination Chamber when Kofi had his breakout performance, which was an amazing performance. I was getting chills watching that. It was great. But you don't need to take that, what was great, and try to stretch it into an 8-month run. I applaud WWE for going for it and listening to the fans. That shows us they're listening to the fans. And that's wonderful. And I think that that's what the company should do. And there are true Kofi supporters out there. And I am a Kofi supporter, but not a supporter as WWE Champion, and that's okay. This belt is not for everybody. There was not a groundswell, a grassroots movement before Kofi Kingston stepped into the Elimination Chamber of, man, where the hell is Kofi in the WWE title? What is WWE doing? Not once. Not once did I hear that. And I've been watching wrestling since Kofi, 15 years before Kofi even was thought of in WWE. Never. So, great athlete, great talent, great guy, boring as WWE Champion. I don't care if he throws chocolate chip pancakes, blueberry pancakes, comes out with 5 stacks of pancakes, or whatever he hides behind the WWE Championship, and can continue to get beat down every week, and beat down, and his family insulted and threatened, and comes out and just hops, skips, jumps to the ring with pancakes flowing out of his belt like he's Rainbow Bright. It is insulting to the WWE Championship. It is devaluing the WWE Championship at the expense of what? At the expense of what? And the benefit of what? Having Kofi Kingston come out there and make sure that he entertains the kids and entertains the small number of adults that enjoy this nonsense. Kofi Kingston is devaluing and pulling and detracting from the value of the WWE Championship. Don't need to hear about the rainbow story and this dream that he's in. I don't need to hear that it's overcome and Randy Orton is a formidable opponent. This is where, the true test for Kofi comes in, and this is where Kofi Kingston cements his legacy. It's as if Kofi Kingston is suddenly unbeatable. A guy that has lost more matches than I can even think of in his career, to suddenly becoming unbeatable because he almost beat Daniel Bryan in an Elimination Chamber match he wasn't even supposed to be in. So a lot of this is not believable. A lot of this is taking away from the WWE Championship. But let's get to the match itself. That's a long-winded explanation. The match itself was exactly what I expected. Very good. Very good. Very good match. Kofi Kingston wins with one Trouble in Paradise, and he vanquishes the Viper, the Apex Predator. Randy Orton goes down. But fear not, those who are with me. I smell a rat coming to SmackDown Live. And that rat's name is Brock Lesnar. And when they do this draft, you can bet your ass that Brock Lesnar is going to make his way to SmackDown Live and will be the man to defeat Kofi Kingston for the WWE Championship. Please. I'm off the train. I've been off the Kofi Kingston train. And if you don't believe me, just go listen to the reaction Kofi Kingston got last night. It was lukewarm at best. So those of you that are saying, what are you talking about? How is Kofi Kingston not unanimously loved? Well, go ask the audience in attendance last night. That I would say it was 50-50. Not the reaction you're looking for your top babyface on SmackDown anyway, of Kofi Kingston being the top champion in WWE, based on the heritage, lineage, and value of the WWE Championship. So those are my thoughts on that. The Tag Team Championship with the Raw anyway, with Strowman and Seth Rollins being defeated by Robert Roode and Dolph Ziggler, a team that was just thrown together and now is our Raw Tag Team Champions, which I'm fine with. I think that these two need an identity. I'm fine with it. Both have very good in-ring skills. I think Ziggler is probably the better in terms of the in-ring performance, but nonetheless, this could be a pairing that exceeds expectations if given enough time and given enough identity, given enough time to cut promos and tell us why they're here. Why did they band together? We still haven't heard why they are together. Just something simple, and maybe they'll resolve that tonight on Monday Night Raw. But I'm fine with them being Raw Tag Team Champions, and Seth Rollins and Braun had no business being Raw Tag Team Champions beyond last night. They can't be doing double duty. It just is silly. Them dropping the belts was kind of a slam dunk there. And again, the match quality itself, I think, was very good too. Having Seth Rollins, though, lose and take the fall there clean to a glorious DDT was a bit surprising. Although, what's the alternative? Having Braun Strowman come out and take the fall? You can't. So if you're going to have one guy take the fall, that would be the one. So I understand why they did it. It was just a bit jarring to see the Universal Champion take one Universal DDT, or one glorious DDT, and lose the Raw Tag Team Championships. But we all forgot about it by the end of the night when Seth stood tall, and we had the Fiend come out and hit Sister Abigail, of course, on Seth, as we talked about. All right, moving down the line here. We had the SmackDown Tag Team Championship with the Revival versus the New Day. This was a bit surprising that the Revival defeated the New Day. It was another brief but efficient piece of storytelling here. This is where we had Xavier Woods' left knee being targeted throughout the match. And this overall was an okay match. I had nothing really stood out to me other than after the Revival won, that initial shock, but cutting a post-match promo talking about Randy Orton's chances in the WWE Championship match later that night. This is what the Revival need. They need mic time because they are being lost in the shuffle. We saw their first run as Raw Tag Team Champions, which was a complete and utter forgettable mess because no one remembers. They became Raw Tag Team Champions, and then it goes, okay, well, you're kind of with Shane, but I don't know what you're doing. There wasn't a whole lot there. It was forgettable. Now they have a chance to, no pun intended, revive themselves here with the SmackDown Tag Team Champions and maybe find a home on SmackDown Live. That would be fine. But they need mic time to develop their identities other than just the most generic looking wrestlers you've ever seen. That's what they need. All right, the Women's Tag Team Championship with Alexa Bliss and Nikki Cross defeating Fire and Desire. I'd give this match a C if I was going to rate it A to F. It really wasn't particularly entertaining. It really wasn't a whole big deal. It really wasn't a big deal in my mind. The reason is because not only was the match a bit short, but it also had the 24/7 championship nonsense run straight through the match. Literally run right through the match. Which tells you what WWE feels of the Raw Tag Team Champion, or the Women's Tag Team Championships. When you have the 24/7 championship injected into this match because you're worried that the crowd isn't going to give a damn about the match, so we got to throw the 24/7 title, which means even less into the match. And, there's one point where Alexa Bliss almost pinned R-Truth, which actually would have been interesting, although I don't know how they would have continued the match. But, nonetheless, we had that nonsense run through, and ultimately, Alexa and Nikki retain. The next match on the card here was the Intercontinental Championship for Shinsuke Nakamura versus The Miz. I enjoyed this match probably more than most. There's a lot of potential here with Shinsuke and Sami Zayn. Sami Zayn, one of the best talkers WWE has. Period. Both brands, any era. I wouldn't say he's not the best, but he's in the conversation of underutilized, great mic skills, talent. He's on the card here, and having him be the foil for Shinsuke Nakamura and be the guy that is there to help Shinsuke win, I think is a plus. It helps Shinsuke, who certainly needs the help, and it gives Sami Zayn something relevant to do other than just coming out and getting choke slammed or losing another match, of which he has done plenty of since returning. And I really miss the critic of the critics, by the way. I really don't know where that went. I think it was a very interesting angle that could have gone somewhere, and ultimately didn't, but nonetheless. So this match was good. It gave some nice false finishes. Shinsuke looked more motivated than normal, and Miz, I would say, has probably been quieted more than any other rivalry in 2019. He just doesn't have a whole lot to say lately, and that's fine. I mean, this business is cyclical. After his match in feud and program with Shane McMahon, of which he was the loser, he was on the losing end of that program. We have him in the Intercontinental Championship match. He hits a skull-crushing finale, and we have Sami Zayn interfering, and it allowed The Miz to take a Kinshasa for the finish and having Shinsuke Nakamura retain. And I'm fine with that too, also because you need to establish these two. If Shinsuke were to lose here, this alliance may have dissolved, and it would have undervalued the alliance that had just begun, a few weeks ago. So this was, I didn't want to say a complete slam dunk, but there was a high confidence of Shinsuke retaining here. Okay, then we get to a very long Raw Women's Championship match of Sasha Banks defeating Becky Lynch via disqualification, and Lynch retains the championship. So this was a very intense, very physical, great match. I thought this was one of the best matches of the show, and it added a lot of, I think, steam to Sasha Banks, even in a defeat of not gaining the women's championship, because she never quit. She didn't lose. She has a case to be made for getting a rematch at Hell in a Cell. Of course, there's no automatic rematch clauses because apparently that's antiquated. But the psychology is there for another match. We all know what's going to happen, but if you notice, the next pay-per-view is Hell in a Cell. What did Sasha do when the kitchen got too hot for her with Becky? She ran. Ran through the audience, ran backstage, got mustard poured on her as Becky Lynch was chasing her. And so what's the next logical step? Put him in a cell. This is where Becky can say, you can't run. There's nowhere to hide. And I like that. Typically, I like it to the Hell in a Cell match itself to be saved for matches that have been going on for a few months, and this is maybe the third or fourth match. So having this be the second match, it's better than the first, and there's history there, and it makes sense because Sasha ran away. So I'd be interested to see this, and I think that's where these two will end up, is inside Hell in a Cell, which I'm looking very much forward to. Hell in a Cell is a match that is held close to my heart. It is the match that got me into wrestling with Shawn Michaels and The Undertaker back in Bad Blood, October 1997. It brought me in emotionally, instantly. And so it's a match I hold very close to my heart. I really do. I love it. And especially when it's deserving, and it's not just there, which I still don't like, that it's just there on the card. It's part of the pay-per-view schedule, so whatever matches and programs happen to be going on at that time, we're just stick them inside of a cell. It's stupid for me. But WWE likes gimmicks, right? And I disagree with that being part of the pay-per-view schedule. So, but nonetheless. So Becky Lynch loses to Sasha Banks, but it's by DQ, so the title doesn't change hands. And furthermore, how is Becky Lynch disqualified when those two were outside of the ring for a good 5-10 minutes? How was it not a double or a double count out? Did I miss something? Did WWE just say, official got knocked down after being accidentally hit with a chair. We don't need to send another one out. It's the Raw Women's Championship. How did that not logically end in a double count out? I understand the logic here. I'm not going to nitpick too much, but for 10 minutes, not one referee was sent down in the most professional wrestling, or the most professional organization that presents professional wrestling in the history of the world, doesn't know to send another referee out. All right, well, that's enough of that. But I thought this was very good. Having Becky apply the disarm her through the chair looked great, and I'm looking forward to this rivalry continuing. I really am. I think that Sasha could finally be the one to take down Becky, and again, I'm in the train of having heel champions right now. I need a heel Sasha to grab that belt. I'm done, just like I'm done with Kofi. I am done with Becky Lynch being Raw Women's Champion. It is time for a heel to take over from now till WrestleMania. That is just logic. It is psychology 101. It is a formula that is tried and true and works and is proven to work. And it is time for WWE to implement this plan. Bring back heel champions. Babyfaces and chase is always a better story. Okay. So, again, in general, I enjoyed the pay-per-view. A couple of other things here. I know I'm getting to Roman in just a minute. King Booker interrupts the Street Profits. Now, look, I've watched the Street Profits in NXT. I've seen them. What the hell are they doing on the main roster? I'm being serious. They are backstage. And, again, to the casual viewer who has no idea what they do in NXT, pretend I'm a viewer that has never seen them in NXT. Didn't know that they actually had prior experience in any kind of wrestling environment prior to being just on the main roster. What the hell are they doing? They are a slightly classier version of Crime Time. That's what they are to me. They're backstage making raps, making jokes, saying phrases and quips that may or may not resonate and may or may not make sense and just are not entertaining at all. Am I the only one that finds the Street Profits extremely obnoxious and eye-rolling and channel-changing? They play too much to the stereotype here. Let's be honest. I don't need the stereotype. That's what they play to, and that's the history of what WWE has done occasionally with black athletes, and it's unfortunate. I just don't like the gimmick because it plays to stereotypes that are not appealing to the main audience. It's doing a disservice to them and their long-term success. And the casual viewer going, who the hell are these clowns? They're just backstage all the time. What are they doing? Again, apparently they're just sitting backstage watching the show. But so King Booker interrupts. Love that. King Booker is I forget how good it was. You talk about a guy taking advantage of winning the King of the Ring tournament. Look no further than King Booker and Queen Sharmell. It was just magic to see. If you haven't seen it and you're somewhat new to the WWE genre or didn't watch back in 2008, I want to say, go watch it. King of the Ring, Booker T. It's pure magic. You talk about a guy just giving his career a shot in the arm. That is a perfect example. Eric Rowan defeats Roman Reigns via pinfall. No disqualification. So, on my preview show, on my prediction show for the Clash of Champions, I said that Eric Rowan is going to win. Whether that's by hook or crook, maybe even outright, Eric Rowan needed this win. Why? Because this whole ridiculous whodunit storyline, which is the most convoluted mess I've seen in WWE in a while, may or may not be, probably isn't as bad as what they've done to Kevin Owens in terms of booking, but it's up there. They needed to have Eric Rowan win this. Roman Reigns can bounce back. He always does. And will continue to be the focal point of SmackDown Live regardless of who's champion because WWE still believes Roman Reigns is the face of the company. So we get Luke Harper interfering on Eric Rowan's behalf. And just as Roman Reigns was going to spear Eric Rowan into oblivion from the top of the stage, we get Luke Harper booting him in the face. Crowd loved it. I loved it. But the question is, who are they? And why is Luke Harper there? Is he the true assailant, as many people speculated? Or is Eric Rowan really the assailant and Luke Harper's just there because, well, we're brothers? I hope that's not. I hope it's Luke Harper who did it. What I would just like is, more than anything about this storyline that is a mess, is just answer one question. Why? Why is nobody asking why? Has anybody come up to Rowan and said, why did you do this? Has Eric Rowan even provided a lick of a motive? It makes no sense. As a writer for WWE, how do you not have a motive? And again, maybe we haven't seen it yet, but you give the motive up front and then build to the match. It gives the match more oomph. It gives the match more of a reason to happen. So why did Eric do what he did? Why did he do? Huh? So maybe we'll get an explanation. It comes out to be Luke Harper, who's the mastermind or whatever. I don't know. But a why would be great. A why would be great. Other than just, no one can control me. Well, but still, why target Rowan? What, am I missing something? Again, and where does Daniel Bryan fit into all this? I thought Daniel Bryan was going to be the one to interfere on Roman's behalf or on Eric Rowan's behalf, and that didn't happen. But the match itself was fine. It was the biggest match of Eric Rowan's career, and that certainly is a plus for him, getting the biggest spotlight of his entire career. The match itself, again, was kind of what we expected, a little bit slow-paced. This was about Eric Rowan getting his time and having Roman sell for him as a true monster, and that's what they did, and that's fine. So the real story here is not Eric Rowan. It's not Roman Reigns. It's Luke Harper's return. And that's what people are coming out about this. So that was Clash of Champions in a nutshell. And again, I think it was a good but kind of weird pay-per-view. If I was to assign it a grade, I'd give it a C+, B- in terms of quality. Obviously, The Fiend with his 30 seconds at the end was good stuff. Luke Harper's return and the great booking from creative on Bayley and the good match with Randy and Kofi, which I think they had a good match. Just again, I'm just so done with Kofi as champion. And Seth Rollins and Braun Strowman, who they relied a lot on power moves and finish, kick out, finish, kick out, finish, kick out, finish, kick out. And they brought back the pedigree, which I was excited to see. But it was all about the finishers. And how many finishers is it going to take to beat Braun Strowman? The answer is 5, including pulling out the pedigree. So I'm fine with how they booked Seth. I'm fine with how they booked Strowman. I don't think Strowman was damaged, even losing clean, because of how many finishers he kicked out of. And I think that's the story that they're going to tell on Monday night is, that Braun Strowman, even while he was defeated, it took 4 stomps. They're going to emphasize that 4 stomps and a pedigree. And that's fine. That's what they should do. That's how you repair a babyface that lost clean. It's how they went down. And Braun Strowman went down in a blaze of glory. But it's a clear message. More than anything, this is a clear message to fans that Rollins is our guy. And it should be. Because he's slayed a beast. He's now slayed a monster. And I guess maybe can he slay a fiend? Maybe that's his next slogan. I don't know. But that is where they're going. I love it. I'm already excited for Hell in a Cell based on the projected matches of the Fiend versus Seth. Very interested to see how that one turns out in terms of booking, because you can't have the Fiend lose clean. But is it time for Rollins to be dethroned somewhat shortly after defeating Brock and Braun? Very interesting booking coming along. And also excited for Charlotte versus Becky inside the Cell, which again is presumed, but we'll find out tonight. I'm excited as hell to see that as well. So Hell in a Cell, which is coming live on October 6th, and it's going to take place in Sacramento, California. And so that gives us only 2 weeks build. Well, 3 weeks, including tonight. So 3 weeks of TV to build to the next pay-per-view of Hell in a Cell. And then, my God, it's already Survivor Series. Where does the summer go? Boy, and I'm a Giants fan, so it's not even fun with football back, because when your team gets destroyed, it's not a fun deal. But there's always DraftKings and fantasy football, which is what I do. So that's those are my thoughts, guys, generally on Clash of Champions. I thought it was a solid show. I didn't think it was blow away, but certainly noteworthy with the returns of the Fiend and return of Luke Harper. Very intriguing there. Lots of questions to be answered. Lots of storylines progressed, and clearly a move towards Hell in a Cell, which is where they're always interested in, is next. What's next? And it looks like it's going to be inside the cell is what's next. So, all right, guys. Well, thanks so much for listening. Again, follow me on Twitter at the WWE Podcast, or head on over to WWEpodcast.com, and you'll be getting yourself a plethora of information, as well as articles that are exclusive to my website. And supporting the show, just click on the Amazon banner on the Support the Show tab. And as always, as I like to remind you, if you go to patreon.com/WWE Podcast, you can get yourself an ad-free experience for $1. An ad-free experience for $1. And I'll be doing a live video experience during this show exclusively on patreon.com/WWE Podcast. So get yourself on Patreon, because for that $1 a month, it's limited time. And I'm saying that because the video feed, I may bump up to a higher tier level in the Patreon feed, if you will. So for $1 a month, get yourself on board now, so you can get yourself locked in and be able to get a video feed, as I've been promising, which is coming this week. So I'll make an announcement on my Twitter feed whenever that is live, and I'll give you guys a link. So go on and check that out. I appreciate it. But everybody, as always, enjoy your evening, night, morning. Enjoy Monday Night Raw, and I'll be back tomorrow to discuss Monday Night Raw, and then discuss SmackDown and bring a co-host on Thursday, and get the NXT podcast back up and rolling. And, of course, in a couple of weeks, bringing on the AEW weekly podcast. So, yowie wowie. That feels appropriate. Yowie wowie. We have a lot of stuff coming your way. So, guys, again, thanks so much for listening. As always, I'll talk to you next time.